So I want to thank everyone for joining us for this webinar tonight. I'm hoping to have some great discussion and really get your feedback on what we're doing. But before we start talking about the governance changes, I wanted to start by, first of all, really just taking a minute to enjoy the success that we've really achieved as an organization the past couple years. We've all, as leaders within SWE, put in a lot of effort to grow the organization to what it has become today, and I think that's something we should all take a minute to recognize. While many other associations have seen a downturn in membership, SWE has really continued to grow and become an even stronger organization. For instance, in the past 10 years, our membership has increased by nearly 16,000 members. It's nearly doubled. And now we're growing into a global organization with affiliate groups in a number of countries around the world. In that same time frame, conference attendance has really tripled, and we've added scores of virtual and face-to-face professional development training, expanded our K through 12 programs, really grown our scholarship program, and amplified our government relations and public policy efforts on the national stage. And it's really as a result of all of our hard work that this has happened and achieved for what we achieved today. So with all the good news, it still comes to recognition that we really still need to evolve in order to remain relevant. All the changes I just mentioned have required more staff support, and they've really required different volunteer leadership structures and opportunities. One of the things we've looked at is how can we provide more meaningful and relevant leadership opportunities and training to our members. This is something we've always really prided ourselves on offering since our founding over 65 years ago. And when we surveyed a number of our leaders, we've really realized that it's maybe the leadership opportunities that we provide can be better. Society as a whole has changed and continues to evolve even more quickly. People no longer join associations or are willing to be members in associations for the same reasons that they did years ago. And in general, the type of volunteer experience that people want from the feedback we've collected from our membership has changed over the years. We've also collected feedback from our members that our current structure has become confusing and difficult for many to navigate. This is something we've heard from both collegiate professional leaders as well as some potential future leaders. So we think that this may keep leaders from participating, and as a result, we've noticed that year after year many positions remain unfilled, or we have members filling multiple positions or the same position for multiple years, year after year, resulting in volunteer burnout. One of the big pieces of feedback we have received is that people don't join SWE to complete reports, and that tends to be a lot of what some of our volunteer experience is completing reports. But rather, people really want to promote our mission of advancing women in engineering. So we took all this into consideration, all this feedback, and that's why we decided it was really time to evolve our governance structure to promote the continuous growth of our organization, rather than stagnating or inhibiting that group. Next slide, please.
I'll take it from here. This is Penny Wirsing. So with all of this in mind that you just heard, in FY15, the board engaged with McKinley Consultants, who actually specializes in helping professional associations to help determine the ideal governance structure and volunteer service model to really support our growth and globalization goals and maximize the member engagement that we have. McKinley took a number of steps. They reviewed a lot of available data. They conducted in-depth interviews with a number of different people, including SWE staff, current volunteers, past volunteer leaders, and the idea was to measure perceptions. These participants included some pretty long-term SWE members. I think the average tenure was, oops, are you backing up? You went too far. Back up. There we go. The average tenure was 20 years. There were some fellows and some different folks in there. And then we also did some in-depth discussions with senators and region governors. And those were face-to-face. They also conducted benchmarking to look at how other organizations have effective governance and engagement practices to the extent applicable. Some of these organizations included IEEE. I know some of you listening are members of some of these organizations, NSPE, American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. So we realize that every organization is different and that we can't fit our model exactly like someone else's, but we also realize that there are things that we can and should be learning from these other organizations. So based on all this information, McKinley proposed a number of recommendations to optimize our governance structure, and for the past several months, a group consisting of senators, region governors, board members, some longtime SWE members have been working in a number of subgroups, and this was designed to bring in as many different points of view as possible. Subsequently, McKinley did a survey of members, focusing on governance and bylaws practices of comparable organizations. So the groups that, the subgroups that have been meeting are focusing on the areas that you see here, the nomination process, board composition, region structure, Senate responsibilities, committee structure, bylaws, and then the section structures and requirements. We were using the McKinley recommendations as a guide. Again, I mean, we are taking a lot of different information into account. We're not following the recommendations one for one. And I think on the Q&A section of the governance website, you can see a little bit more about what all of their recommendations were. Okay. So a little bit more about the process to date. As many of you attended, we did discuss some of this at the WE 15 Town Hall. And we heard that more communication is needed, that the communication channels that we thought we were using were not as effective as they need to be. And so we've incorporated that feedback, and we're providing more and more frequent information to our members on why we're making these changes, and also providing a mechanism for feedback. There's the governance.swe.org website, where a lot of information is posted, and then the governance@swe.org email address can be used for asking questions. This town hall is another example, as well as other planned town halls for our general membership in the coming weeks. All of these subgroups have held multiple discussions and face-to-face meetings in Nashville and at the Winter Senate meeting, as well as regular calls. And this collaborative discussion has allowed us to piece together what we believe is a high-level vision of what this future will look like, incorporating what we've heard works and doesn't work. Now, keep in mind, we know that some of these recommended changes are not going to make everybody happy. We just ask that you have an open mind, and keeping in mind that the case for change that we just outlined, that you help us identify challenges and issues that need to be addressed in order to make this a success. That's what we're asking of you. Turn it over to Colleen.
So since the town hall meeting back at WE 15, what we did is at the winter face-to-face meeting, we sat down with the Senate, and we also invited to that winter face-to-face other people who had been working on the subgroups, the region governors, members of some committees, and other interested parties who are participating in the subgroups. And during that meeting, we outlined a high-level 8,000-foot view of what the organization looked like based on all the feedback and the input that was collected from all of those different subgroups. We really used that meeting as kind of a summary of the subgroups to outline what we saw this society to look like moving forward. So I'm just going to kind of walk through a little bit of the discussion we had. So basically, the board of directors will remain the governing body of the society based on this high-level outline of the organization. We talked about having collegiates become voting members of the society. Currently, collegiates do not have the right to vote in our society, and there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about a member being a member and not distinguishing so much between professional and collegiate members, and by this, giving all members the same rights. The board of directors moving forward in the future likely will still remain elected with some additional appointed directors. We made a step forward to adding the ability for the president and the board of directors to select up to 3 special directors for FY17. I believe Jessica may be choosing more than 1 special director as we move forward, and this is kind of the vision of what the board is going to look like based on the input of the subgroup moving forward. The Senate, we're looking to evolve into something a little bit more of a strategic body. It's probably going to be called something other than the Senate. Change the function of the group, you really need to change the name. So there have been a few different names tossed out, but nothing settled on at this point in time. We're looking at having this body be really focused on guiding the strategic vision of the organization. They'll be the folks looking at that environmental scan every year. They'll be the folks that will be functioning as the strategic planning committee. The strategic planning committee would, in their function, would merge into this body, and this group would really be responsible for providing headquarters and the board of directors recommendations and guidance on setting the strategic plan for the organization and the ops plan for the upcoming year. We're thinking this, for a proper size, this would be in the range of about 15 to 20 members, some elected, some possibly appointed. Again, the details of all this haven't been worked out about how we're going to get these people into the group, where they're going to come from, how they're going to be selected. That's going to be focused next level down. Headquarters, again, will still continue obviously to exist based on some of the work of the things we're looking at. More of the administrative functions that volunteers typically perform right now would come shifted over to headquarters. So we see headquarters growing a bit as they absorb some of these administrative responsibilities. A lot of the feedback we got from the focus group says that the things they hate about the leadership positions within SWE are the reports, are the paperwork, are those administrative functions that they don't really find fulfilling. And honestly, I don't blame them. I don't find doing paperwork particularly fulfilling myself. So we'd be looking to shift a lot of that to headquarters. I know there's been a lot of discussion about regions, and in this high-level view, regions have really kind of that level, they're kind of that middle level of management, and we're looking to really get away from having solid region boundaries. There's still going to be things that are going to happen regionally, and we're looking for another group, maybe the leadership coaching committee, to evolve into an organization that really looks at how we help provide things on a regional scale. Leadership summits, groups getting together to meet on a regional basis. We're looking for another group, one of the committees, to address that type of function, particularly the leadership coaching committee. So as the regions go away and that these solid boundaries go away, we're really looking to committees to provide that strong leadership pipeline. One example we talked a lot about, the outreach committee and different task groups and different leadership opportunities that currently exist within the outreach committee. They set up tasks for things that are just a 1-month function and other things that are more long-term functions, and they provide a wide variety of leadership experiences for their volunteers. So we're looking at how can we take this model that the outreach committee has come up with and is really functioning quite well with to use it to build a leadership pipeline within our other committees. One of the discussions that came out was really a lot of this function that the Senate provides is the checks and balances for the organization. So we looked at, okay, how do we ensure there is checks and balances for the board of directors moving forward? So we looked at the key committees that would provide, that could provide this checks and balance. The finance committee, the audit committee, bylaws, ethics, and the nominating committee. And we were looking at, okay, maybe the solution is to have those committee chairs be elected by the membership. So those 5 committees would become standing committees, and their committee chairs would be elected by the membership on the national ballot along with the other board of directors and other elections. As far as section goes, we're not really looking to change sections. Sections are vital to the health of our organization. Sections are where the work of our organization really gets done and where our members in many ways gain so much from the organization. But we do want to allow our sections to not have to do so much paperwork, streamline the bylaws, looking to simplify the requirements to become a section. What can we do while still maintaining our 501c3 status and be able to provide this flexibility to our sections in the United States and make them look even a little more similar to the organizations that we're beginning to set up abroad. We've been setting up these affiliates in countries around the world, and there's a lot of flexibility we've provided with them. So we're going to look at both of those models and see what we can do to make it a little more consistent around the globe, but provide for flexibility for the sections to still do what they want. Membership levels will not change within the organization. We have proposed eliminating the honorary grade, which is a grade we don't use, but there are no planned changes to any other membership grades. And I know there's been a rumor of the fellow grade being eliminated, and that is definitely not correct. The next slide just shows a kind of an overview of what we've been thinking. This is something we drew up on a whiteboard and is kind of stuck during the Senate meeting. Again, as I mentioned, the formal regional structure will likely be dissolved. The services currently provided by the regions, we have a group focused on the regions who is reviewing what the services the regions provide in detail. There is an elaborate spreadsheet that talks about all the services the regions provide and making sure that we take those responsibilities and that somebody is going to be picking up. We're looking to still maintain a volunteer point of contact for sections supported by resources and subject matter experts. And this will most likely happen through the committee structure with some flexibility in how these roles are initially organized and set up so we can continually collect feedback and improve the process. One of the things we thought was very important, the sub-teams thought was very important, was making sure we strengthen training for our section leaders. Focusing on these skills that are both applicable to SWE and their careers. So that's something that's also been highly discussed in the process. And we also talked a lot about communications throughout the society, particularly from the society level down to section leadership. The regions, the thought process of the regions is they would provide a lot of that communication, and the regions do to some extent, but as we looked at the communication process that exists out there, it probably hasn't been the best. We've gotten a lot of feedback of people wish they knew more or didn't get enough information, so we're looking at how can we improve that the communication process and the consistency of communications across the organization. We're hoping that the new membership system will allow headquarters staff to automate a lot of the processes that have been previously labor-intensive, allowing them to focus on more of the administrative details of the communication piece and a lot of other things that they'll be absorbing from the region leadership. For those of you who've had a chance to take a look at the new AMS system, I just want you to keep in mind that this was only the initial rollout of the system. We still have lots more pieces to roll out throughout the rest of the calendar year. So you'll be seeing more and more functionality on the system as we continue to roll it out throughout the year. And I think you'll see that we've got some really great tools in place to automate and to simplify a lot of those administrative details. Again, as I mentioned, we really talked a lot about communication and making sure that communication is key to not only just discussing this with all of you and discussing this with leadership throughout the organization, but really making sure that the structure we set up gives us that flexibility we need to respond to a changing world, but also gives us the ability to better communicate things to people and get the right information that people want to hear, the information that they want to them, and not fill up their inboxes or their life with a bunch of general information that they're really not looking to collect. So we'll continue to incorporate what we're hearing from all of the sub-teams in the working groups, and also we're hoping to get some of your feedback today and as we continue this process so we can hear what doesn't work, and what challenges you might see going forward. So next slide, Penny will talk a little bit about the process of where we're headed in the future.
Thank you, Colleen. So as Colleen mentioned, I mean, the focus here is on the whole intent of the restructuring is to improve the overall SWE experience for all of our members and to help them develop skills, practice skills, that can help them in their careers and going forward. And so while a lot of people have had really valuable experiences through the existing SWE structure, and I've been a SWE member for a long time and I've had some very positive, very valuable learning experiences, we all know that not all of the experiences are that valuable, and I think we could all probably give some examples of some less than positive experiences, and we all know leadership positions that have remained unfilled or are filled by the same people year after year. So we need to be realistic about that. Also, the services provided at the various levels have been reviewed in detail, and the services that add value will definitely remain. I mean, we're not here trying to make SWE fail. We're here to try to make SWE better. And so if there's a value to something that's being done, then we want it to remain. We just want it to be done by the appropriate person or group. Those things that we've been doing all along that don't add value will probably be eliminated or potentially moved to headquarters. Sorry, Karen. So a lot of work has been done through this year, through the subgroups, and those existing subgroups have been tasked with identifying specific next steps from each of the subgroups, and those are going to be consolidated. And then a smaller working group is being created for FY17, in part recognizing that the huge groups that we've had working in the last year are probably not as needed, and that many of the members are rotating out of the leadership positions that put them in those groups in the first place. So some of the things that we're looking at include revamping the different selection processes. I mean, if we're not going to have a geographic structure, there's a lot of our committees and representation that are based on that. So we need to figure out what is the right way to get representative perspectives from our SWE members if it's not just by zip code. As Colleen mentioned, communication will remain key. We will continue hearing input, testing ideas, socializing decisions. This town hall is an example of that. So ultimately, some of the decisions that need to be made will rest with the Senate. For example, bylaw revisions, while other decisions will rest with the board. But in order to ensure optimum buy-in, and I say optimum, all of the changes will be vetted and extensively communicated. But even so, we recognize that some of these changes are not going to please everybody. So again, I would ask you to help us identify concerns that need to be addressed in order to make this a success. That is, you have a lot of experience, you have a lot of passion for SWE, you can help us make it a success, and that's what we're asking of you. And I would just point to the website and the email address there that you can use as well. But I think at this point we will be open to questions.
Yeah, and so I've got a couple of questions here that have come through over the chat. So maybe we'll just start. The first was, can we have a copy of this presentation? And the answer is yes. I think anybody who registered will also get a link to the recording, so that will be made available. So one question here is, where will other committees such as awards and membership fall in the organizational chart?
So I can take that, Karen. The other currently, as you all know, each committee is assigned a board representative. And we don't expect the way the committees are set up to really change as far as their reporting structure. Each member of the board will still have certain committees and certain committee chairs feeding information up through them and from the board back down to those committee chairs to the different committees. So we don't see the reporting structure really changing. The thing that we're really looking at changing with the committees is making them stronger, more vibrant to the organization, and making them into better pipelines for training and educating our leaders. And then, like I said, the other change we would be looking at making is making some of those committees standing committees with their leadership elected so that they will be able to provide checks and balances to the Board of Directors.
There's another question about when will the FY17 committee be finalized. So I think this is probably Penny, the group that you mentioned who will be working on this going forward.
Yes, so we put out a call for volunteers or committee members when we put out the call for all the others. What we're looking for are ideally, some of the people who have been involved with these discussions previously would be fabulous. People that have great perspective. I have been asked if I would lead that group, and I have accepted. So unless somebody else is chomping at the bit to do it, I'm really excited about it. I've been involved in some pretty major changes in SWE in the past. For example, when we moved from a one-year budget to a three-year budget, when we made some changes to the reserve document, and so this to me is another really exciting opportunity to really have a positive impact on SWE going forward.
Another question on what is the timing for all of this?
I can take that, and Colleen, if you want to jump in. Some of the changes that are more straightforward are being proposed right now. For example, there are a couple of bylaws changes that are in front of the Senate right now. Part of the task for this FY17 group is to line out what needs to be done first, second, third, because some things really do feed into others. So we're looking, we've been talking about a 3 to 5 year outlook. Personally, I would like to see it take less than 5 years. I think we need to be a little more nimble than that, but we do recognize that certain things have to follow a certain process, and so we may still be tweaking it in 3 years.
Okay. There was one question about where can we find information on how the international affiliates are formed. I'll answer that. There's information on SWE.org. If from the SWE.org homepage, right there in the center, you'll see a link to information on all of our international activities. And from that landing page, you can click on a tab about affiliates, and you'll see information about forming an affiliate and the forms that are required to do that. And if anybody has any specific questions about that, they can always reach out to me at headquarters. There was a question. I'm going to just take one last one from the chat, and then I'll go to, I think there are a few people with hands up that we can take their questions live. Can you share a few ideas of how we plan to make the committees stronger?
So we've had a subgroup who's been focusing primarily on the committees, working on this, and this subgroup has contained a number of folks who have been very involved with the outreach committee. Mary Perkinson, in fact, is leading it up, and Mary is, some of you may know, has spent a lot of time looking at working with the outreach committee. In fact, I believe she was chair of the outreach committee at one point. So we're looking at consolidating some functions of some of the different committees. Again, also with the committees, we're looking at taking away some of that more administrative stuff that doesn't make sense for them to be doing and moving that on to headquarters. We're looking at trying to streamline their operations a little bit so they have more room to be creative and do the things that really focus on the mission of the society. So we're taking that model from the outreach committee and looking at other committees and the work that they are accomplished, that they're tasked with doing, or the work that they could be doing that they simply don't have time for at this point in time, and looking at how we can help them set up different task groups for short-term functions, for long-term functions, and really divide their organization up into a manner to really promote better working and better volunteer experiences. Again, each committee is going to be a little bit different. I don't want to get into the details of each committee, but we're really trying to look at modeling it on the outreach committee and the structure that they have, and take that model by looking at each different committee and how we can spread out that work, how we can give different opportunities to the volunteers, and really working with the committee chairs and the folks who are involved with those committees to determine what they should be doing, what they could be doing better, and how we might restructure the committee to make it more effective and make it provide a better volunteer experiences.
And there's just one more here from the chat that I think is worth answering. In terms of the strategic body, so kind of the re-envisioned Senate, how would the members of that be elected?
We have tossed around a number of different ideas on how that would be elected, but really right at this present time, we haven't gotten down into the weeds on that, on the details of that yet. That's something that's going to be left for the smaller group to talk to the nominating committee and to work amongst themselves and with the nominating committee and with other groups to figure out how that will be done. We've talked about representation from different member segments, such as women in academia, women in the military, grad students. How do we capture that and make sure we have a process that gives us a strategic body that really represents our membership and the strategic issues we're focusing on? But right now, I can honestly say we don't have a plan for that. That's a detail yet to be worked out.
I'm just seeing a few affirmative comments about people liking the videos that we've done, as well as supporting less report writing. So that's good to hear.
I think we can all get behind less report writing.
So at this point, let's just take a call for anybody who would like to be unmuted. How about Stacy?
Hi, this is Stacy Delvecchio. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
That's Stacy.
Hello. I think I'm so excited to see what you put together, and I just want to applaud the leadership for your courage in putting this out there. Right, not everybody's going to like it, but there's so many components of this that we need to do, and I think it's great that you've got the bravery to say, let's go for it and do it and quit tinkering around with it and get what we need. So thank you.
Thanks, Stacey. We really appreciate your support, and please love to hear any thoughts you might have on some of the things we put out there today, too.
Okay.
Looks like Barbara Faust has a question as well. Barbara, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, a quickie question. You said that you wanted to model some of the changes on the outreach committee and the way they consolidate things. Can you give like a couple of examples on which way you're headed, the direction that would be taking?
So, for instance, the outreach committee is divided into groups, and I'm honestly not very involved with the outreach committee. So, if I misspeak about something, a detail, I apologize now. But the outreach committee is divided up. They have a working group that focuses on, for instance, the Wow That's Engineering program. They have a group that's focused on SWE Next. They have a group that is focused on all different aspects of the projects that they're working on. And these might be long-term projects, they might be short-term projects. It might be something, for instance, a quick project to support the USA Science and Engineering Festival, and they'll set up a sub-team to do that. Whenever they have a new task to work on, they set up another small sub-team with a leader and a small group of people who can really focus and put all their attention into that task. And this is great because in many ways it provides smaller leadership opportunities for people to kind of grow within the organization and testing their hand at a smaller, albeit a larger within the full society leadership position. And that this is where they end up getting their committee chair-elect and their committee chair from these smaller task leaders who get a chance and an opportunity to try out their hand as a leader. Some of those groups are long-term things, some are short things, and it provides different volunteers, different types of experiences. This is just kind of the model we are thinking of using for the other committees and looking at can they analyze the way the outreach committee sets up tasks to accomplish the same thing within their groups. For instance, within the finance committee, there are groups who are working on, for instance, a small piece of training for section leadership. We're looking at maybe they would set up a task leader for this They already kind of do it to some extent, and a small group of people who would work on providing this training, putting it together, vetting it, presenting it to the membership, and then that group would disband. And there might be a larger group set up within it, or a more permanent subgroup set up within the finance committee that continuously has another function, such as looking at the financial statements as they come in each month from the treasurer. So we're looking at kind of evolve that model across the different committees and seeing if there are opportunities for more leadership responsibilities for different people within the group and different types of volunteer experiences.
Oh, thank you, Colleen. That looks like you're going to get more focused and task specific.
That's kind of the way we're heading, and we're thinking this might allow the committees to get more accomplished. And some of them seem like they're spinning their wheels sometimes, but it also, we're looking at hoping to provide a more meaningful leadership experience. And again, this is just an initial model we're thinking of, and we're hoping to put something forth and try it, and if it doesn't work, then we adjust it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There's another question here from the chat about, was there any input on the structure of the Board of Trustees?
I can address that. We met with the Board of Trustees about a year ago when they were looking at adding some additional trustees. They have a separate charter, and although they have been coming to the nominating committee for assistance with filling some of the positions, they really are a separate body, and so we have not looked at either incorporating them or making changes to their structure.
Okay. I did see Lori Ramsey had her hand up. Lori?
I wanted a little further explanation of if the regions go away, in like right now, Region H is really strong, like Detroit section is really strong. What is the vision of this local, let's say local conferences and things like that to kind of replace it? What's the vision?
So we've been looking at a new model for regional type conferences. We've been looking at, and I think there was an email that just went out a week or two ago about the We Local model that we're rolling out. And these are regional type conferences that will be based on kind of similar models to the society conference, but on a smaller, more local level, and they'll move throughout the year. Right now we're piloting or test running 2 of them next year. One will be in Pittsburgh and one will be in San Jose, California. And we're looking to kind of replace the 10 separate region conferences that we have with about 6 We Local conferences that will move around and be able to have in smaller cities throughout the United States. We're still expecting, though, that people want to meet on a regional level. You meet within your section, but you still have a lot of folks who are still going to be MALs. We're not changing anything with the MAL organization. And people within different regions are still going to want to get together. And we're really looking at keeping LCC, or whatever that committee evolved into, because we've talked about changing its name. We're looking to use that committee in many ways to help, which they already do, develop these regional leadership summits and these regional events. Leadership coaches are still going to need to be regional. They're still going to have a territory they're going to work in. And we think this is a great opportunity for really the leadership coaches to grow into something pretty powerful within the organization and really look at doing a lot of that training and maybe helping sections to plan regional type events where they can get together, provide training, provide professional development and networking on a smaller scale in local areas.
Will we get the students involved too?
Oh, definitely, and we would want to get the collegiates involved. We're trying to knock down the barriers between professional and collegiate sections and really just go to the concept of having sections at this point in time. Right now, some of the regions have set up, with help of LCC, regional collegiate events where, we're having the larger leadership summits that include professionals and collegiates, but also the collegiates finding a need to have some different type of events. I know Region E has done this the last year or two where they've gotten different groups of collegiate sections together for different types of leadership training, and we're looking to pretty much do the same thing continuing going forward. we really think that those events provide a lot of good face-to-face information and training for our members.
Can I just add, Colleen kind of mentioned it when she was talking about the page on the region or the layout, but you know, the things that we want to focus on, because we know that it's important, are things like the engagement, the local engagement, whatever local means, you know, having a point of contact. So that's one area. Another area is training, you know, being able to provide training and an opportunity for people to test the training that they've learned. Communication, leadership opportunities, all of that. So those are the important things that we're going to continue doing. We're just not going to do it in such a regionally geographic boundary type way. I mean, you mentioned that Region H does a great job in some of those things. If you happen to live, you know, 50 miles away, and I'm sure you're not, you still include as many people as are interested, but you understand what I'm saying. If we're not looking at it as just regional but rather geographic, then we can still do those important things and just have it a broader application, I think.
There's another question about how will best practices between the regions, or I'm sorry, between the sections now be shared, you know, if regions go away?
I think a lot of those best practices will be shared in kind of two avenues. Like I said, we've seen a lot of value in those fall leadership summits that we've been having, and a lot of best practice sharing goes on at those events. So we will continue to have those events. Also, I think, as I mentioned before, LCC, I think, is going to become into something larger and something more involved in really training our leaders. And I think that LCC will partially serve some of that function. And also, as I mentioned, with the new membership management system that we've rolled out, there's going to be additional functionality in there. We know we rolled out the communities years ago and they weren't so successful, but we're looking to use the new member management system and some tools that are provided in there to allow people to communicate and do something with the vision of what those communities originally were envisioned to be, something similar in this new membership database, membership management system. So those are kind of the avenues that we're looking. Many of them are the same type of avenues that we've had before, except we just won't have the region, massive region structure that we currently have monitoring and controlling these activities. It'll be a little more flexible and fluid with LCC helping to facilitate some of it.
One more question about what is the long-term plan for the MAL organization?
Right now, the long-term plan for the MAL organization, and we did sit down and look at it. I'm a MAL, so I have a particular interest in the MAL organization. We saw no changes to the MAL organization at the present time. It seems to be functioning quite well, and we really didn't look at making any major changes to it at this point in time. There was nothing that came back from McKinley, honestly, that was directly aimed at the MAL organization, and the more we talked about it, we really didn't see any necessary changes at this current point in time. It is to be honest, I think the MAL organization is one of the most flexible groups that we have within the society, but as we continue to move forward and Penny and her smaller sub-team or her smaller team continue to look at this, again, nothing is finalized or set in stone at this time. So as they continue to finalize the structure and the plan, I'm sure they'll continue to look at the MAL organization as well.
Closing remarks, anybody?
I just want to say something before we close, Karen. I appreciate all of you taking the time to participate in this today. These governance changes, they've consumed a lot of my year as president, and it's been very exciting to look ahead. First starting with looking back at what the organization has accomplished over the last 65 years, and I'm very excited as we move forward with this new governance project into what the organization can grow into in the next 65 years. I think it's amazing that SWE continues to do so well when so many other organizations are really struggling to get members and to get corporate donations and to get all those things which we've been so successful with and which make our organization vital. Penny Ann mentioned some web pages and contact email. That email address, Penny is actually monitoring that email address. It's not just going into a black hole. So if you have any feedback for us, or if you talk to anybody and they couldn't participate today but they have some feedback, please encourage them, and I encourage you to please reach out to us and let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your input. As Penny mentioned, you know, I know everybody isn't going to be 100% happy with everything. We can't make everybody happy with everything we do, but we're really trying to come up with a structure that really helps move our organization forward, and we really appreciate any feedback that you can provide us based on your experiences as longtime SWE members and leaders.
Great. Well, with that, I think we will go ahead and end the webinar. And as I said, everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording, which will also provide the presentation from tonight. And so thanks to everyone for participating.
Thank you.